be seated. There are questions that open us to the truth and questions that close our hearts to it. The Sadducees think they've set the perfect trap. In the resurrection, whose wife will this woman be? For 7 had married her. They think they are clever. Their question is a sneer dressed up as theology. The Sadducees were the wealthy, priestly elite in Jerusalem. Josephus tells us they had the confidence of the wealthy, but they had no standing among the populace. And he says further that they were boorish in their behavior, even to one another. They accepted only the first 5 books of the Bible and denied the resurrection entirely. Their question to Jesus is designed to prove that resurrection is absurd. For the Sadducees, resurrection was a threat. If resurrection is true, then God cannot be confined to their rules, their temple, their economy. And so when they question Jesus, they are not defending or looking for the truth. They are defending their own privilege to show that God must fit within the logic of their own comfort. It's the essence of the bad faith question. And their spirit didn't die with them. It still whispers today. It is the cynical, privileged voice that blocks justice and systemic care by demanding, well, how can we afford to pay for all of that? If you're hungry, why don't you just get a job? The voice that says, this is the way the world is, and nothing can change it. The voice that judges people by their place in a broken system, rather than by their God-given dignity. This is the spiritual engine of inaction, designed to keep the world hopeless and to keep us powerless. Now, that same spirit of the Sadducees sometimes shows up in our prayers. We too can ask God in bad faith, where are you, God? Why aren't you listening to me? And if we're honest, we're not really asking, we're accusing. We already think we know the answer. You're not there. You don't care. You won't act. Those are not cries of longing, they're tests. Tests that try to prove God's absence. Questions meant to break relationship rather than deepen it. But there's another way to ask. It's the difference between the question that sneers and the question that seeks. Job shows us that better way. The Sadducees spoke from behind the temple's walls made of gold and white marble. Job sat on the ashes of ruin. And yet Job cried out to God, not to control God, but to encounter God. He shouted into the void, giving us those fierce, impossible words, "For I know that my vindicator lives, and that in the end he will stand upon the earth, and after my skin has been destroyed, then in my flesh I shall see God." Job's cry was full of desperation, but never cynicism. The Sadducees ask in order to prove that God is small. Job demands to prove God is faithful. His question is not a test. It's a good faith question. When Jesus finally answers the Sadducees, he doesn't fall into their trap. Instead, he goes back to the beginning, when God set fire to history at the burning bush I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And then Jesus declares the single sentence that shatters their bad faith. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. For to God all of them are alive. And that is the turning point. The Sadducees worshipped a God of memory, a God trapped in written words and behind temple walls. But our God is a God of the living, meaning that love is never wasted, and every soul we have loved is never forgotten. Hope is never foolish, and every system built on fear and control is already passing away. Resurrection is not an argument we have to defend against cynical questions. It is the power that reveals God is breaking into our city's weariness, into our politics of despair, into our own wounded and closed hearts. We even saw a flash of it this week in the mayoral election, when people so often forgotten by the city's politics showed that justice and imagination still belong to the people, giving us hope that the impossible can be made possible. The Sadducees vanished from history. They left no legacy. When their temple fell, their world fell with it. They could not dream beyond the visible ruins of their shattered lives. But we, the followers of Jesus, dare to trust the God of the living. We dare to ask good faith questions whose answers are not yet visible. In the ruins of what we think we know, we can feel resurrection stirring, quietly at first, fiercely, impossibly. For to God all are alive. Our story is not yet finished. The question before us this morning is not, whose wife will she be? That question is dead. The answer is not, there can be no resurrection. That answer is a lie. The true question is an act of spiritual honesty. What bad faith question are we asking right now that limits God? Is it the question we whisper in our hearts that keeps us small? Is it the logic in our imagination that says change is impossible? Is it the cynicism we accept in our city and in our world? Let us lay that limit down. Let us turn from the sneer of the Sadducee to the fierce demand of Job. Let us dare to ask the good faith question. And finally, let us dare to live the answer. Our God is a God of the living.